In 2023, a 45-year-old man lay on a medical table while his 17-year-old son sat in the next room. They weren't there for a routine checkup. The father was having his blood drained from his body, filtered, and replaced with plasma extracted directly from his teenage son. The father's name was Bryan Johnson. He had sold his company to PayPal for $800 million, and he was spending $2 million every single year trying to biologically reverse his own age. That plasma exchange with his son was just one Tuesday. This is not science fiction. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is what happens when the wealthiest people on Earth decide that death is a problem money can solve, and that laws are simply obstacles for people who can't afford better options. There is a conversation happening right now in private rooms that you are not invited to. It happens at exclusive medical retreats in Switzerland, in clinics operating legally in Panama and Mexico, specifically because what they offer is banned in the United States. In private laboratories funded by people whose net worth exceeds the GDP of small nations. The conversation is simple. How do we stop dying? And the answers being purchased are not available at your local pharmacy. Bryan Johnson is the most public member of this club. He consumes over 100 pills every single morning before 6 a.m. He undergoes monthly MRI scans, ultrasounds, and blood panels that measure over 2,000 biomarkers. He follows a strict protocol called Blueprint, engineered entirely by a team of 30 doctors whose sole job is keeping his biological age younger than his chronological one. His latest biological measurements show his heart functioning at the level of a 37-year-old, his skin regenerating at the rate of a 28-year-old, his lung capacity equivalent to a healthy 18-year-old. He is 47, but Bryan Johnson is the one who talks publicly. Most of the others never say a word. The science starts with mice. In the 1950s, researchers at Cornell University performed one of the most disturbing experiments in modern biology. They surgically connected the circulatory systems of a young mouse and an old mouse, sharing the same bloodstream. The results were extraordinary. The old mouse's tissues began regenerating, its muscles strengthened, its cognitive function improved, its organs behaved as though years had been reversed. The young mouse aged faster. The scientific term is parabiosis, and for decades it remained an academic curiosity until Silicon Valley discovered it. By 2016, a startup called Ambrosia had built an entire business around this concept. For $8,000, later raised to $12,000, they would infuse your bloodstream with plasma harvested from donors under the age of 25. Over 150 clients paid. The FDA sent a warning letter in 2019 stating there was no proven clinical benefit and potential serious risks. But here is what the FDA statement did not say. It did not say the science was wrong. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, early Facebook investor, net worth exceeding $8 billion, had already publicly stated his interest in parabiosis. Two drugs sit at the center of the longevity underground. Both are real. Both are FDA approved. Neither is approved for what the world's wealthiest people are using them for. The first is rapamycin. Rapamycin was developed in the 1970s from a soil bacteria discovered on Easter Island. It is an immunosuppressant, officially used to prevent organ rejection in transplant patients. But in laboratory studies, it has extended the lifespan of mice by up to 25%. It appears to target a biological pathway called mTOR, essentially the cellular switch that controls aging at the molecular level. Dozens of tech executives and longevity researchers are now taking rapamycin weekly in doses calibrated for anti-aging, not organ transplants. This is an off-label use. In most countries, obtaining it without a transplant diagnosis is either illegal or exists in a profound legal gray area. David Sinclair, Harvard Medical School professor and one of the world's leading longevity scientists, publicly takes rapamycin alongside metformin, NMN, and resveratrol. He has stated his biological age tests younger than his chronological age by over a decade. The second drug is metformin. Originally developed for type 2 diabetes, metformin has shown in population studies that diabetic patients taking it consistently outlive non-diabetic patients who don't. A large-scale clinical trial called TAME is currently underway specifically to test its anti-aging properties, but the trial won't conclude for years. The billionaires aren't waiting for the trial. In 2015, a woman flew from the United States to Colombia. Her name was Elizabeth Parrish. She was the CEO of a biotechnology company called BioViva, and she was about to do something no regulatory body in the developed world would allow her to do inside their borders. She injected herself with 2 experimental gene therapies. The first was designed to protect her telomeres, the protective caps on DNA that shorten every time a cell divides. Shorter telomeres equal faster aging. The therapy used a modified virus to deliver instructions to her cells to produce an enzyme called telomerase, which rebuilds the caps. The second therapy targeted myostatin, a protein that limits muscle growth. Blocking it was intended to preserve muscle mass as she aged. She chose Colombia specifically because it operated outside U.S. regulatory jurisdiction. Her follow-up testing later showed her telomere length had increased, the equivalent of her white blood cells becoming biologically younger. The scientific community remains deeply divided on the validity of her self-reported results, but BioViva's work has attracted serious attention. Because what Elizabeth Parrish did publicly in a documented reported case is what multiple ultra-wealthy individuals are believed to be doing privately in clinics across Mexico, Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Eastern Europe. In January 2022, a new company emerged with a funding announcement that stopped the scientific world cold. Altos Labs had raised $3 billion in its initial funding round. $3 billion for a single biotechnology startup. Among the confirmed investors, Jeff Bezos. Among the reported early backers, Yuri Milner, the Russian-Israeli billionaire who has funded more breakthrough science projects than most governments. What Altos Labs is pursuing is not incremental. It is not a new supplement or a cleaner version of an existing drug. They are working on cellular reprogramming. The concept originates with Shinya Yamanaka, the Japanese scientist who won the 2012 Nobel Prize for discovering that mature adult cells could be chemically reprogrammed back to a stem cell state, essentially rewound. Altos Labs believes partial reprogramming can be applied to living organisms to reverse aging at the cellular level without turning cells cancerous. Their scientific team includes Nobel Prize winners and some of the most credentialed biologists on the planet. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, separately invested $180 million of his personal fortune into a company called Retro Biosystems, pursuing the same cellular reprogramming goal. These are not vanity projects. These are the wealthiest and most technically sophisticated people alive, making the largest bets of their lives on a single thesis, that biological aging is not inevitable. What gets reported is Bryan Johnson's morning routine. What gets reported is Jeff Bezos investing in Altos Labs. What does not get reported is the layer operating entirely below that. In Tijuana, Mexico, less than 20 minutes from the U.S. border, clinics operate legally offering treatments including stem cell infusions, peptide therapies using compounds like BPC-157 and TB-500, research chemicals with no approved human dosage, and NAD plus IV drips administered in quantities that would require a prescription in most U.S. states. The clientele arriving at these clinics does not come from Tijuana. They fly in from San Francisco, from New York, from London, from Singapore. Peptides like BPC-157 have shown remarkable tissue repair and anti-aging properties in animal studies. They are not approved for human use anywhere in the world. They are sold legally as research chemicals and illegally injected in these clinics daily. The cost ranges from $500 to $50,000 depending on the protocol. For the people who can afford it, that is not a barrier. Here is the number that matters. In 2022, the global longevity industry was valued at $25 billion. By 2025, it had crossed $44 billion. The people funding that growth are not doing it out of scientific curiosity. They are doing it because they have accumulated more wealth than they could spend in 100 lifetimes, and 100 lifetimes is exactly what they are trying to buy. The treatments being used right now, outside regulated borders, inside private clinics, injected into the bloodstreams of people whose names you know, have not completed clinical trials. The long-term consequences are unknown. The risks are real and, in some cases, severe. But risk has always looked different depending on your net worth. Your government has regulators to protect you from experimental treatments. The people funding those governments have planes, and those planes know exactly where to land. The global anti-aging industry is projected to reach $120 billion by 2030. The treatments available to the wealthiest 0.001% will not be available to you for decades, if ever.